Hello everybody, welcome to this TEFL Org webinar with me. My name is Carl. I'm a tutor here for the TEFL Org and I'm here today to talk to you about career paths in TEFL, in teaching English as a foreign language. So thank you very much for joining us on this Thursday afternoon. We usually do these on a Friday, but we're doing it on a Thursday this week. So thank you very much for joining me all the way from Belfast here in the United Kingdom. So please say hello in the chat. Let me know where you are in the world. The topic, as I said, of this is career paths in TEFL, but actually we're going to throw this open after I've been through a little presentation to sort of any questions you might have about teaching English as a foreign language, whether you want to get into TEFL, whether you want to, whether you're already past your certificate and you're looking for your first job, anything like that. I can hopefully try and answer your question in the next hour or so. Alan is monitoring the chat. He will also help me by putting in some comments and some links, that kind of thing. But please say hello. Let me know where you are in the world. And if you want to get the questions in early, I'll make sure that I get to them first before I actually, before we finish in about 50 minutes time. Okay, so the topic of today's webinar is career paths in TEFL. Now, I have been teaching for about 20 years and I've actually had quite a few different roles in teaching English as a foreign language. So I started off actually as a summer school teacher. So that was actually before I got my first TEFL qualification. I was at university, I hadn't graduated, and I saw an advert for a teaching job in the summer and I went for it, even though I wasn't qualified, and I got it. So that was my very first teaching job. And then from that, I went the following year, I actually was the manager of that centre. So that's not a normal way of doing it. That was just a fast tracked kind of thing because I knew the school. But then after I got qualified, I worked as a teacher. Then I worked through as a senior teacher. Then I worked as a centre manager for a bit. Now I do stuff like examining. I do a bit of writing, although not too much materials writing because it's not something I personally enjoy. And now I sort of run my own little TEFL business where I do a bit of helping individual students, but also some videos, that kind of thing, and also some teacher training. So I'm going to talk you through, first of all, some of the TEFL stuff that we've got going on. Okay, so please, any questions? I can see Joseph, hello in Galway Bay. Hello, Elizabeth in Canada. Nice. Ash, hello, and Nathan in Chiang Mai. Lovely, I can see everyone. So please, just any questions you might have, drop them off. Okay, Alan, I wonder if we can get the PowerPoint up there. Is that possible? Do you think? There we go. Thank you. So first of all, what I want to first say is TEFL a career choice? Because a lot of people I train, they say to me, oh, it's just a short-term thing. It's not going to last very long. It's just something that's just going to get me through a sort of couple of years, that kind of thing, till I know what I'm doing. And that's perfectly okay. But also TEFL can be a career choice. Teaching English as a foreign language can be a career choice for sure. It's got me through 20 odd years of different roles, and it's definitely been some sort of progression. And also it's something that I feel like I'm going to keep doing. So yes, it's definitely a career choice. Most people though only do this for a few years. Okay. I think it's fair to say that most people going into teaching English as a foreign language don't do it to last years and years and years. Think they'll still be doing it when they retire. They sort of do it for a couple of years, and that is also okay. All right? It doesn't have to be a career choice, but can be a career choice if you want to. There are lots of different options available in the sort of different careers you could do in teaching English as a foreign language. They don't always involve being in front of a student. Okay, so they sometimes go down different routes, and some TEFL teaching English as a foreign language careers, you don't actually ever sort of see students. So there are different sort of routes, and I'm going to go through some of them now. But they basically all start the same way, and they all start by getting a certificate, such as one of our TEFL certificates that you can find on our website here at the TEFL Org. You get a certificate like that, and then from that you get some experience, you start teaching, and then eventually, if you want to stay into it, you will definitely get a career out of it if you want to. Okay, so First of all, I want to talk about careers within schools. So that means you're staying in schools. You're not sort of going out on a freelance way. You're not going to go work for a publisher or something like that. You're staying within a school, and the typical routes that people have when they want a career in that. So I started off as a teacher. I would have my 24-hour contact hours, and I taught basically whatever classes the school wanted me to teach. I taught. Then from that, the first route that you generally see advertised depends on the size of the school. If it's quite a big school, quite often on the lowest level, they have the teachers, then they have the coordinators, then they have a senior teacher, sometimes two senior teachers, depending on what it is. So usually you start as a teacher, then you might go into a coordinator role and then into a senior teacher role. Some schools don't bother with coordinators because they're not big enough to have that level of management. They just have a teacher and a senior teacher. So what is the difference, basically? So if you're going to go into something like a coordinator or a senior teacher role, first thing that it generally encompasses is you observing or mentoring other teachers. So I remember my very first coordinator role, I was in charge of a group of 7 teachers. I was basically their manager. I had to check them twice a year, sit in their lessons, make sure that they were teaching to a good standard. I was also had newly qualified teachers who had only just passed, and I would help them plan their lessons. I would help them do their marking. I would help them deal with any classroom management issues they'd have. That's the sort of thing that you might do as a coordinator. All right. Might also involve a bit of timetabling. So you might have to look at the group of students that you've got coming in, and you might have to decide how many classes you need at each level. You might have to work out how many young learner classes you might need in order to fit sort of say 20 students to a teacher, that kind of thing. Timetabling is something that you might be putting in, might have to do in these roles. Then you might also go down the route of having to choose the syllabus or choose the materials that are being taught by all of the teachers. So you might say, okay, right, we're going to have a business English course this year because the management have told you need a business English course. You would choose what would be studied in that syllabus. You would maybe choose what textbook it is because you would have the experience in order to choose that and in order to help the other teachers to teach that course. Guys, if I'm going too fast, or if I've got any questions, please let me know. I will definitely get to the questions at the end of this presentation. I can see them coming in now. Thank you very much. Okay, so the good thing about taking on these extra duties, and I know teachers that have taught for 20 odd years who have not gone above teacher level because all they want to do is be in a classroom with students, and that is fine. Absolutely fine. Of course it is. That's what a lot of people get into teaching to do. However, if you do go up the route to have a coordinator and a senior teacher, there's usually less contact hours. So that means you spend less hours in the classroom, but that usually means you've got to do more meeting hours. So you might have more meetings with the other teachers. You might have meetings with the management above you, that kind of thing. You might even have meetings with things like publishers who want you to use their textbook, that kind of thing. And it's usually slightly better pay. Now I say slightly because teaching isn't the best funded of jobs in the world. It might be if you sort of go down the Middle Eastern route, sort of go to Saudi Arabia, that kind of thing, but you usually get slightly better pay, less contact hours if you don't want to spend less time actually in the classroom with the students. Okay. The other thing that quite often you end up doing within schools is actually not teaching English, but teaching teachers how to teach English, teacher training. So I remember, for example, one of the jobs I had when I was a senior teacher in Azerbaijan was we had a group of teachers, local teachers. So these were teachers that were from Azerbaijan. They were generally didn't sort of have things like TEFL certificates, that kind of thing. They might have had a degree, but no sort of specific teaching English as a foreign language certificate. And I would train them how to become teachers. Okay, that is and that's usually pays better. It's usually seen as sort of a higher level role than the normal general English, business English exam teaching classes you might do. Okay, so that's within schools. Next, the sort of what you might go on to once you've gone above the senior teacher level is actually managing a whole school. Now, obviously, schools are different sizes. You might have schools that have sort of 500 students. I've worked at some that have that many students. I've also worked at schools that have sort of about 40 or 50 students. So managing a school does depend on the size. And because of that, you quite often have different sort of titles about what it might be. So if you see sort of a director of studies, that's usually a role above senior teacher. So you can usually get, you've done your senior teacher work, you've managed a few teachers, that kind of thing. Director of studies is you're in charge of the senior teachers. You're in charge of absolutely everything that is done in the academic side of teaching. So that is, that's one of the best jobs that you can get within a TEFL school. Quite often there's no teaching involved in these jobs. There's just not a bad wage, and but there's usually quite a lot of meetings and that kind of thing that's involved. The other sort of job you might see is centre manager. That is where you would take on things like the marketing roles and sort of a bit more business roles within the school. So the title often depends on what the school wants. If they want someone to help out with the marketing, that kind of thing, centre manager. If they want someone to help out with sort of totally run the academic side of things, that's usually a director of studies. Definitely going to get to those questions in a minute. Please keep them coming in. Now, sometimes these jobs have to be a little bit business orientated, especially something like a centre manager. Not always, but they sometimes want you to have some sort of business qualification. So some sort of like introduction to marketing, for example. This sort of something like a basic payroll sort of knowledge, something like that. Sometimes they want. Now, quite often they have admin staff that would deal with that, but they want their centre managers to have some sort of information, some sort of general business qualification, some sort of general business certificate. Some I have seen, and these are quite rare, actually require you to have an MBA, a Master of Business Administration. I don't have one of those, but I have seen jobs advertised where they do want them. So that sort of shows that they're looking for someone who's maybe a little bit more business orientated than just academic knowledge. Okay. Then there's jobs outside of schools. So not within schools, they're outside of schools. So you're not working in a school. So one of these, which is something I do a lot of, is examining. So for example, today I spent the day before talking to you guys on Zoom doing speaking and speaking exams, just speaking and a bit of listening, but mainly speaking exams with a group of students in another country, and I would check their level of English. Quite often these examining jobs want people that have been teaching for sort of 2 to 5 years, more than that. They do sometimes want you to have quite specific areas of teaching as well that relates to their exams. So for people who have a TEFL qualification, you might want to look at trying to get into speaking and writing examining. That's where the better paid roles are. That's where there tends to be a bit more work, because the speaking and writing is supposedly a little bit more difficult to grade. Okay. The other side of things is the listening and reading side of things. Now, sometimes some exams, listening and reading isn't marked actually by qualified teachers. It's just marked by people that have a really high level of English. So if you're a non-native speaker, this is quite a good role to try and get yourself into when you're starting teaching. Find out if the exam board wants people to mark the listening and reading. That's generally easier to mark because you find that that it's like a yes/no answer. There's no sort of you trying to grade language. It's like, okay, that's correct or that's not correct. Okay, so they do examining quite often want to have specific experience linked to a specific type of test. So for example, they might want you to have at least 3 or 4 years experience of teaching kids if you're going to go and do a kids examining job, right? So that's why it's quite nice to sort of not to go down one route with your teaching, because if you just choose, right, I'm only going to do adults, you sort of close off some sort of some examining roles down the route. You sort of close off things like being a senior teacher for kids, that kind of thing, because senior teachers can also be for adults or kids, that kind of thing. So keep yourself, as you start teaching, keep yourself broad so that you can sort of maybe specialize a little bit as you go on. All right. Thanks, guys. Right. How to get these jobs? What I would do is I would look at the exam board websites. So, for example, look on something like the Cambridge exams. Google Cambridge ESOL exams, Cambridge EFL exams, that kind of thing, FCE exam. Look on their website, see if they want people. Now, at the moment, it's not a great time for exam jobs because of COVID, but very often they do advertise sort of once, sometimes twice a year to get people involved, because obviously people retire, people stop examining, they want to replace those examiners. The number of EFL exams before COVID was really, really growing. So it's something that companies want to do. So look at the exam board websites. There's plenty. Google EFL exams. You'll get a long list of different types of English exams. Go on the exam board websites, see if they want people and see if you fit the criteria. Okay. Next one is to get into is maybe outside of schools is writing. So getting into you actually creating materials, that kind of thing. So does take a while to get into. So you might find that, it's not sort of something that once you've been doing 5 years, you're going to start say, right, I want to be an exam writer. I want to be a materials writer, and you'll get loads of work. It does take a lot of time to get into, right? How you do it, you might write a 2 pages of a textbook. So you might think something along the lines of, I'm going to write a 2-page spread that involves the past continuous. You've got a great idea for that kind of thing, involving a listening activity, reading, speaking, writing, that kind of thing. You send it off to the publishers. If they like it, they might give you more work through that sort of thing. That's how I got a tiny bit of work through that in the past. Haven't had much for a little while, but I've not really been going for it. But I do know people that have been teaching for a long time, and their career is writing textbooks. The other thing to do is to write exams. There's a lot more work in this than writing textbooks. So, for example, you might have a really good text that you think would be a lovely exam paper, and you might write some reading questions that go alongside it. You might find a nice little sound clip, something like that, and you think there's some really good listening questions you can do with that. You write the listening questions, you send it off to the exam board. They'll tell you if it's good, they'll tell you if it's bad. Get some work through that. LinkedIn is a great place to find roles like this. Quite often see writers, like discussion groups, that kind of thing. You might see things like some jobs being advertised. It's really good. I've also had some companies actually approach me on LinkedIn to get involved with some writing, that kind of thing. Okay. Then once you've sort of, so this is now going back to within sort of schools, but one of the big things that people sort of end up doing after they've been sort of teaching around the world, or after they've done quite a lot of just sort of working in language schools, is to get into lecturing or get into university teaching within the UK, within Australia, and within the United States of America. All right. Now, unfortunately, these do kind of want to have a high level of qualifications. So they do sometimes want you to have sort of up to a PhD in order to work there. But remember, this is a career. A career doesn't come quickly. This is something that might sort of take 10, 15 years to get to. I know a guy who I started teaching with 20 odd years ago, who's just got his PhD. It's taken him a lot of years, but that's allowed him to get into some really good roles teaching at universities in Japan. Really good money, really good benefits, that kind of thing. So that's something that you might want to do. It's quite competitive. It is quite difficult to get, but it does pay really well, especially if you can get jobs in somewhere like the Middle East. So if you're thinking about staying into this for a long, long time, you might eventually want to work to a PhD. Then you might get into sort of 70 or 80,000 pounds a year tax-free. Okay. My advice to you is don't discount TEFL as a career. Don't think it's just going to be short term. If you like TEFL, don't listen to people that think, oh, it's just a short term thing. It is a career. It can keep you going for a long time, but it's also okay if you want just short term fun. If you just want to do a little bit of traveling for a couple of years, it's also a perfect thing for that. So I think TEFL is a great thing to get into if you're not quite sure what you want to do for a couple of years. It's also quite good if you want to get into something that maybe might last a long time. All right. Keep learning. So don't just think that your 120-hour TEFL certificate will get you senior teacher jobs necessarily, director of studies jobs, that kind of thing. Look at extra modules that you can add on to your 120 hours. Look at some young learner qualifications, such as the ones we offer here at the TEFL Org. Look at ones such as you might want to then eventually sort of look into things like doing some business qualifications, such as marketing, that kind of thing. That might help you keep learning, keep adding to your CV all the time. That will definitely open up doors for you as you get older. My final thing is, if you're going to go work at a school, ask the school you work for if they will help you with the funding for some extra courses. Don't do this when you first arrive. Do this sort of after 3 or 4 months. Now, for example, I worked for the company I worked for in Azerbaijan. They paid for my master's. It was fantastic. I then had to commit to them for quite a long period of time. I had to commit to them for sort of 2 or 3 years, but you know, I got my master's paid for it. They also gave me time off teaching in order to do it. It was a really good way of getting my master's. So don't be afraid to ask a school that you work for if they will help to fund it. Okay, thanks for listening to my presentation. I'm going to get round to some qualifications. I might get round to some qualifications. It's only 4 o'clock. Or get through to some questions. So please, if you have any questions related to TEFL as a career, or if you have any questions about just teaching English as a foreign language in general, please put them in. So let's have a look here. Arp Sachin, hello. How can you get an ESL job outside of India? Thanks very much, Sachin. Thank you very much. So, right, there's not much difference. You know, if you're saying you want to get a job outside of India, cool, good for you. But like, the rules aren't necessarily different because you're Indian compared to the rest of the world. Okay, so the other thing I would say there, you've said ESL, which is perfectly fine. In America, they quite often call English as a foreign language English as a second language. It's just a slightly different thing. All right, so EFL and ESL are pretty much the same. Okay, first thing you need to do, ARP, is get your qualification. Now, I don't know if you've got your teaching English as a foreign language qualification. If you haven't got one, okay, the first place to start is to go onto our website, which is TEFL.org. Okay, go onto our website and have a look at the courses that we offer there. Okay, so go to TEFL.org. You see, at the moment we've got, if you're new, if you don't have a qualification, what I would recommend is you go to something like this TEFL courses page, have a look at the different courses that we offer and see if they work for you. Okay, you've got to have, to do any sort of career in TEFL or to do any sort of short-term work, you've really got to have a 120-hour TEFL certificate like the ones we offer here at TEFL.org. So go to our website, TEFL.org. Now, if you've then got your qualification already, what I would recommend you do is go to the section at the top here called Jobs. You'll see here the TEFL Org Job Center. Click on that. Then this page will come up here and you'll see that these are the jobs that we've got advertised currently with us around the world. So you think, okay, do you know what? I can go work in Chengdu City in China. You click on that. We'll give you some information about it. You can see if that works for you. Does that match the kind of thing you want to do? If it does, fantastic. Apply. Sachin, that can get you work outside of India. Okay, so Look for a good qualification, Sachin, that is accredited, that hits that magic number of 120 hours. By accredited, I mean that it's checked by other companies, such as our qualification. We have external companies to us that come and look at our qualification and decide that, yes, it's at a high quality. Then your certificate has that stamp on it. And then the companies you go work for know that you have been trained up by a good company. Okay. Hope that answers your question, Sachin. Please, any more questions? If it doesn't, Sachin, please put it in the chat. Oh, you did write another one. Okay, sorry. Is TEFL enough to get placed in international school or anything more needed? So depends where you want to go, Sachin. So some countries will want you to have a degree in order to go work for them. Some countries, some schools are quite happy for you to just have the TEFL certificate. So you can definitely go and work abroad without a degree. Somewhere like Cambodia is a great place for that. You could go and work in Japan on a working holiday visa without a degree, that kind of thing. If you go to our blog pages on our website, there's some information there about teaching abroad without a degree. So the TEFL can get you work abroad for sure. However, you might see that jobs with a degree also there's more of them out there. Okay. Good. Joseph, hello. What is the best field to teach if you are a senior citizen? I don't necessarily think there's a specific field. Do you mean like a country that is, a part of English? So, for example, business English or legal English, that kind of thing. I don't necessarily think that there's one that's better than the other, Joseph, here for senior citizens. And I don't know what age senior you mean by senior citizen. Some countries do have an upper age limit to a visa. And you've kind of got to work that out yourself, Joseph. I think it's quite often 65 that they have, that is the upper age limit for getting a visa. So you need to sort of check and work that out yourself. Okay. But I don't think there's any sort of level of English, any sort of type of English that's better for senior citizens. Quite often schools prefer people who are of the more mature age because especially if they've sort of can show that they've lived abroad a bit. Why? Because they tend to be a little bit more reliable than younger people. When I think about some of the things I did in my 20s when I started teaching, it makes, I don't know how I kept my job, to be honest. I think mainly because I was not a bad teacher, but some of the things I got up to pretty bad. Whereas the slightly more mature people did not do that kind of thing. So quite often schools want people that can show a level of maturity and can bring a level of experience to it. So I wouldn't really worry about that too much, Joseph. Hope that answered your question. Please put another one in there if I haven't answered it. Ayusha, hello. I'm sorry if Ayushi, sorry. I'm sorry if I've not said your name correctly there. Currently, which country is hiring non-native speakers? Right. So this is something that we get asked a lot here at the TEFL Org, and the first thing I would say to you is it can be quite disheartening as a non-native speaker to think that actually you can't get work here and you can't get work there, that kind of thing. All right, you got to stick with it, Ayushi. Don't just sort of think, oh no, it's gonna be so difficult for me. You've got to stay with it. Okay, so first thing that I would look for if I was you would be to get onto our website here, go to tefl.org, go to the blog section. Okay, click on the blog section here and type into here in the search. Okay, type into here non-native speakers. All right, click in that. You will find information down here about jobs and about roles and about how to get into teaching if you are a non-native speaker. All right. Okay. So just, that's the sort of thing that you can get into. There's lots of information there that I couldn't go into right now. Okay. But a few things that I would say to you right now, Ayushi, is that you need to find out what the country you want to go to classes as a native speaker or as a non-native speaker. So it might not be the country that's made the decision. It might be the company that's made the decision. And they might take something like a high level IELTS qualification. I don't know, IELTS 9, for example, and they'll say, right, okay, English might not be your first language, but look, you have a very high level qualification here. We will take that as a native level of speech. Does that make sense? I hope it does, Ayushi. So don't necessarily think, okay, my first language isn't English, I am the non-native speaker. Look at email companies, check with them. What is a level of English that you will take as being native? Sometimes it can be something like you went to your first language might not be English, but your school might have been in English. Quite often they take that as a native English speaking level. So find that out yourself, right? The next thing I would say to you is if you still think that this is going to be a problem and you're not going to get much work, even with that, broaden your searches out a bit. Okay, so everybody who wants to go work in China generally wants to go work in Beijing. They want to go work in Shanghai. They might want to go work in somewhere like Shenzhen. All right. China has loads of cities, and some of them are a bit off the track. Some of them aren't sort of known to have any sort of tourist attractions. Some aren't even known outside of China, really, and might have a population of 5 or 6, 10 million people. Okay. So think, do I necessarily have to go to those big places that everybody wants to go to? You know, just have a little think about what they want, because a school might be quite desperate and they might take you on. That's what I'm trying to say here, Aishi. Don't necessarily just look at the adverts. Email them, check with them, see if they really, really need people. They might then take you on, that kind of thing. All right. Don't just take, and definitely don't take stuff you've read on Facebook as being the gospel of this. You know, there's lots of work out there if you sort of go and start to think. There's definitely work out there. I have trained non-native speakers that have gone abroad and taught. Definitely does work. Okay. Thank you, Aishi. Right. Joseph, back to you. Hello. By field, you're thinking more of the age of students more suited to an older retired teacher? Well, I think that's more on you, Joseph. I once had a teaching job where I taught 5-year-olds. Okay. And the guy that was in charge, the coordinator of the 5-year-old classes, was a gentleman in his late 60s, and he absolutely loved it, and he was absolutely brilliant at it, and the students absolutely loved it, and the parents absolutely loved him. He was fantastic. That was him. That was his personality. Joseph, I don't know what your personality is like. You might be more willing to teach adults because you feel like they are more set for you. You might actually have quite a childish personality yourself. You might want to go teach kids. All right. So really, I don't think there's sort of an age range that matches the teacher. I think it's more what what I meant by that was, the teacher is older, so the students must be older, or something like that. I think it really does just sort of come down to what the teacher wants to teach. I hope that answers your question. Linda, what is IELTS? IELTS. IEL is the International English Language Testing System. It is the #1 test taken around the world that allows people to prove their level of English. So, and it's also one of the most taught tests. So you see quite a lot of jobs advertised where they want IELTS teachers. Okay, so that's what it is. Definitely, if you're going to get into teaching English as a foreign language, it's something that you want to know about, because there's generally a bit more work involved, a bit more work available in it. It's also quite a fulfilling job. I really have enjoyed my IELTS classes that I've taught down the world. Okay. There's a couple of comments there about like the level of written English. What I would say to you is, if you are applying for any sort of job, really get your grammar and vocabulary, that kind of thing, checked. Use your spell checker. When I was hiring, the amount of people that would send me CVs with spelling mistakes to do an English teaching job, can you imagine? Drove me crazy, and I absolutely threw them away. So yes, native speakers, non-native speakers, you've really got to make sure your grammar is 100%. Okay, and in a chat like this, it's not really so important, but definitely make it, because if you're a non-native speaker and you've got a native speaker, and you've got a couple of grammar mistakes in your application, they haven't, who is the person going to take on? All right. So, just make sure your grammar's really up to scratch. Emma, hello. You've completed the 120-hour TEFL course. It was fab. Good. You're considering taking an advanced TEFL course certificate for teaching online. Can you talk a bit about this course? Yeah. Okay. So, right. So basically, what we can do. So, the theory behind teaching English as a foreign language is similar, almost exactly the same, whether you're in a classroom or whether you're online, the structure of lessons, that kind of thing. But obviously there are differences in terms of things like how you pair people up. There are differences in sort of how you present the materials. There are differences in terms of the camera going out of focus, like that one just is there. There's like differences in terms of the tech problems, this kind of thing. So if you do something like one of our advanced classes, you would find that we would help you take that theory that you've learned. And I'm talking here about one of the sort of the add-on modules that you can do for teaching English online. Okay. You can take the theory that you've learned with us and you can actually put it into practice in terms of teaching online. So we would take you through like how to do it, exactly that kind of thing. And then you might also do something like one of our weekend courses or our Wednesday, Thursday, Friday classes, midweek classes where you actually teach a class online, like a dummy class with a trained instructor by someone like me who would actually help you to give you feedback, that kind of thing. So basically what it does is it adds on to your CV in terms of the experience. It also, if you're new to teaching, it can also help you to overcome that barrier of not actually having taught into a class at all, because you would have done something like a practical class in order to get yourself through say you've got a bit of experience and to sort of take away the nerves from teaching that first class. Okay, so I would really recommend, we've got a discount on at the moment. Go to the TEFL courses, have a look at that. I think Alan's just put some chat in there, just put some links in there, just to help anyone that does it. Quite often schools are looking for a little bit of experience. Okay, they're looking for someone that can show that they have they sort of have got over that first couple of hurdles of actually teaching a class, and doing something like one of our advanced classes or one of our add-on practical modules, that kind of thing, definitely does add to that. Hope that answered your question there. And Linda, I can see that you've put into the chat that you did the course and you really enjoyed it. So I really recommend it. All of our tutors here at the TEFL Org have a lot of experience and have a lot of qualifications. So for example, I myself have up to a master's level of qualification. I've got a certificate like you guys are hopefully going to do. I've got a CELTA, Delta, that kind of thing. It really does. The tutors really, hopefully, do know their stuff. Okay. In terms of the accreditation, I can see a couple of questions there about accreditation. Right. So what you need to think about is there are other TEFL providers. We are not the only ones, and we don't ever sort of say we're the only ones. We think we're a pretty good one, I must admit. But we get companies to come and check our accreditation. Those companies have nothing to do with us, and they don't really care whether, well, no, that's the wrong word. They don't, it doesn't really matter to them whether the courses that they check come up to standard or not. All they want to do is make sure that the companies are good in order to pass that accreditation. I didn't phrase that right at all. I'm going to start that again. If you've got a good accrediting body, they want to pass the ones that are good, if that makes sense. They have no urge at all to pass the bad ones, because if they accredit the bad courses, it looks bad on them. And all of our accreditation schemes are external to us and are known throughout the UK and are known throughout the world as being of a high level. And they also check other companies. They don't just check ours, they check other companies. So if you don't know which TEFL course to do, look through the accreditation of these TEFL courses and decide whether you think they're a good accrediting body. Because anyone can start up an accrediting body without much knowledge of that kind of thing. You've got to make sure that it's a good one. You've got to make sure that it also covers other schools. You've got to make sure that it just is a good level. Why is that important? Because companies won't take on people with a poor level of accreditation. Okay, so definitely make sure that you've got a good level of accreditation to your course. Okay. LG, hello. Is it important to do the teaching online course for getting an online job? Is a normal 120 hours? Look, the 120 hours, you will see jobs advertised where the 120 hour certificate is enough. For sure, you will see jobs advertised where that is enough. However, as I said in the start, you know, it's important to keep learning. It's important as a teacher to keep sort of proving yourself a little bit. So yes, get the 120 hour certificate, go teach online. I know plenty of people that have done that. However, I also know people that want to also put that theory into a bit of practice by doing something like the online modules added onto it, that kind of thing, in order to get them over the hurdle of actually teaching the first class, to take away their nerves, in order to actually get more knowledge and actually show the practice, in order to spend time with a tutor and really sort of iron out any problems they might have or anything they don't know, that kind of thing. So yes, it is enough, LG. However, some people want to do extra, and however, it does give you a leg up on your CV because it's an extra bit of writing that you can put in your CV to show that you have some experience, that kind of thing. All right. Julie, thank you for your essay. Is it a question or you just say, Julie, you've just completed a 120-hour TEFL course and really enjoyed it. Good. All elements of course were interesting. The grammar's hard, but learning, I didn't know what to expect from the virtual classroom, but it was very enjoyable. Good. Right. Oh, so you're just saying that we're brilliant. Well, Julie, that's lovely. Thank you. Thank you for saying we're brilliant. I'm glad that we're brilliant. Listen, everybody, we're coming to the end. So if there's no more questions in now, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for the chat. And I can see a little bit of discussion there. That was fantastic. The topic of today's was making TEFL as a career. And for a lot of people, they don't go into TEFL as a career, and that's absolutely fine. But what I'm trying to say from this hour is it can be. You know, you look at the tutors that we have here at the TEFL Org, we have made a career out of TEFL. We have, you know, started earning more money. We've done different roles. We've sort of branched out on our own. There are different things that you can do within the field of teaching English as a foreign language that go beyond just doing the TEFL certificate. Okay, so, you know, just go beyond teaching one-to-one or in small groups, wherever it might be around the world. So just, you know, think of it as a long-term career if you need to, if you want to, or just think of it as a nice way to get a bit of money if you need some money coming in, or think of it as a nice way to get away for a couple of years, something like that. One more question, Julie, what additional course would I do after 120 hour? I think if you really enjoyed the 120 hour, and if you really think that teaching English as a foreign language is for you, I would do something like the level 5 TEFL course that goes into a bit more detail, maybe that kind of thing. I would also sort of do something like the weekend course. Julie, I don't know where you are in the world. Are you in the Republic of Ireland? Nearby? I know this weekend, for example, I'm doing a teacher training course in Belfast this weekend. So, you know, you might find that you could do something like a practical core element, that kind of thing, add it on. You might also find that you could do something like a young learners module if you want to get into teaching kids and you want to know a bit more than that. There's lots of extra modules that you can go into that would suit your needs, but those are the sort of the ones that I would think about doing. Okay. You're in Cheshire, Julie. Definitely will be running some courses near Liverpool, I think, and Manchester, definitely soon. So thank you all for tuning in. Please like this video. Please put in the comments if you enjoyed the video. If you hated the video, please let me know as well. Put it in the comments. I've got thick skin. There's plenty of other videos that we've done down the last sort of year and a bit where we talk about lots of different topics. So I recommend you go back and watch those maybe. If you do have any questions for us, go onto our website. In the bottom right corner, there's a chat with us function. You can ask some questions on that. Go to our Facebook page. You can send us a message on that. And somebody will get back to you as well. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a nice weekend coming up. Thank you all.